So our autopilot is the habit that we've acquired over the number of years that we've lived life. It's our thoughts, because our head, you can never shut your brain down. It's like asking your heart to shut down. It's not going to happen as long as you're alive. So what happens is, our brain keeps thinking, our mind keeps thinking, and it thinks in the manner that we've taught it to think. Because as we've lived life, we've connected things. And our brain uses those connections as we're living life and going through our day. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you find a piece of glass on the floor. Most of us will pick up that piece of glass right away and look after it, right? You'll put it in the garbage, you'll wrap it in paper, whatever you've learned to do with it. That's what you'll do, right? Because the connection that you've made is piece of glass on the floor, not a good thing, somebody can get hurt. That's the connection you've made. And because you've made that connection, now it is true for you. And our autopilot is that part of our mind that has a storage of all these little connections that we've made. Another connection that I noticed when I moved to Canada is that people have a connection between feeling good and the sun shining. In Canada, if the sun isn't shining, you should not be feeling good. For most people, for a lot of people, right? And where I came from, the sun shone all the time. So when the sun was turned off, everyone was happy that the sun was turned off. And so when I came here, I noticed that. I was like, oh, this is just a different connection that people have made, right? And it's my choice whether I want to buy into it or not. So you see, these connections that we've made, there's a place that we store them. And that place where we store them is our autopilot. So as we go around, go through our day and we observe, we put our eyes on things that are happening, we may not be putting attention on them, but our autopilot is strengthening those connections. So if you step out of the house and you notice that it's overcast, your autopilot has already made that connection for you. Oh, it's overcast, therefore it's not a day to feel fantastically good. And then it feeds you that information, and you translate that information on the emotional scale. So it takes you either up or down the emotional scale. Or you'll come out of your house and you'll say, oh, the sun is shining, that means I should feel good. So you feel good, right? Because your autopilot is controlling your emotional response. Okay? It's feeding you the information, and then you're basing your decision to feel good or bad based on that information. When you take back manual control, you're saying, whatever connections I made in the past is fine, but I want to make new connections today. And I want to choose how I connect things. So I'm going to step out of the house, and if it's overcast, I'm going to say, what a lovely day. Instead of saying, oh, it's overcast. Doesn't feel good. Right? I'm going to start changing those connections that I've made in the past consciously. Because I now understand that I want to control my life rather than let those past connections that I made control my life. And that's when I say you pick your battles, because some connections you want to change and other connections you don't need to change. So my autopilot tells me when I see a piece of cake, sugar. And I say, yes, sugar. I don't try and change it. Okay? I don't fight There are some things that are in my autopilot that are for later. Don't want to do it just now. But there are some things in my autopilot that if I was conscious, now I'm using. So when you become conscious of your autopilot, you start using the 6 thinking choices. And taking that example of the sky being overcast one step further, in the past I felt this way. Okay, that was past negative. What do I want in the future? Well, I want future positive. I am going to disconnect how I feel from whether the sun is shining, because I now understand I can feel good regardless. Future positive. And now positive. I'm not going to go now negative because the sky is overcast. I'm going to go now positive because I know my sunshine is within me. I have this term for people that I see who have their sunshine within them, and I call them my sunshine people, because literally when they walk into the room becomes brighter, because they are not dependent. Their sunshine, their happiness, their joy is not dependent on whether the sun is shining or not, whether the sun is shining on them or not, because their sun is shining inside them, right? So you pick and choose based on the 6 thinking choices, based on what in your life you think needs to change now. What do I want to change right now and make it better? Doesn't have to be everything. Like I said before, you don't have to do everything at the same time. Pick and choose. Right? And so that's how you start changing your autopilot, by taking manual control, by knowing where you are and starting to change those connections one by one by one. Another example is somebody says something, and I call that a thought virus. When they say something, you accept it. Now you have a choice to make. You can go on your autopilot and say, oh yes, because you're trying to be nice, right? We've been taught to be nice. So somebody says something, we say, yes, you're right. Right? Now, you can say that to appease them, but you have to have your self-talk. Your self-talk has to tell you, I'm not buying into that, or yes, I'm buying into that. But if you're going to buy into something, buy into it consciously. Base it on the 6 thinking choices. If I buy into this, what kind of choice am I making? Did I tell you my Costco story?
I love that one.
Right? So in my Costco story, if I had accepted what this woman told me, then I would have made that connection and it would be stored in my autopilot. And then forever I would be governed by that. And I made the choice not to. Right? That's what it means to be in the present. To be in the present and have manual control, I'm going to form my own connections, not let them be formed by default. So how do connections get formed by default? You notice things and you connect them together. Like I said, the sky is gray, so I shouldn't feel good. Right? A belief, very easy belief for a lot of us women is, oh, I woke up 10 minutes late, that means I won't get there on time, or I won't get everything done in the morning that I need to get done before I can leave the house. It's just a belief. Because time, you can bend time. You can get a lot done in very little time if you don't have that belief. But it's a connection that you've made, and now it's part of your autopilot. So that's how our autopilot starts controlling us until we decide that we're not going to let it control us, and we're going to make our own connections, new connections that are empowering. So I always say the test of whether or not you want to accept something is, number 1, the ability to live with it. If I have the ability to live with it, it doesn't bother me, I don't need to do vibrational work on it. I don't need to do vibrational work on sugar because I can live with it. Right? But if something aggravates you, then you got to work on it. And I forgot the second one. What was the second one? I don't know. There was something I was going to say, and it's not coming to me now, so it's not important just now. Okay, so Jennifer,
That was
does
a
that?
good example.
Exactly, right? Yeah, so you just, once you reprogram your autopilot. Oh, I remember. So always ask yourself, is this limiting me in any way? If it's limiting, see what I did, Mitch, thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, I said, okay, I can't remember that, but that's okay. Maybe I don't need to remember just now. See, I didn't
go negative, you kept positive.
That's right. And in the very next breath, it came back to me because I didn't beat up on myself, right? So I always ask this question, and I observe people this way as well when I'm coaching, is, are you limiting yourself in any way? If you're limiting yourself in some way and you're okay with being in that prison, then that's fine. Right? So I'm going to go back to the example of the cake. I'm limiting myself because I don't want to eat it. So I'm limiting myself, but I'm okay with being in that prison. It doesn't bother me. Right? But if something bothers you, then you do the vibrational work because it has an impact on your quality of life. Choosing not to eat cake has no impact on my quality of life. It's an easy decision. Okay? So when a decision is hard and something is affecting your quality of life, and it's limiting you because you could do more if you didn't have this belief, then you work on it.